So the White House taking issue with it, realizing this could be a political vulnerability here, as already the president and his campaign has to combat all of these narratives about his memory not being well, about his age and him not being up to the job. They've got to contend with that being now in the record as a part of this report, Elizabeth. To those maybe younger Democrats who have concerns that the bill was rushed and they didn't see it, what would your reaction be to that?
I said the vote was very clear.
When it came to lawmakers themselves, Elizabeth, Congress is going to Congress, right? You had Republicans pointing the finger of blame at the Biden administration. You had Democrats pointing the finger of blame at the Trump administration. But when it came to these generals, they definitely sort of rose above that and just gave a more honest assessment than we'd heard before. Let's say we get to June and you haven't blinked and they haven't blinked and we're mounting closer to the end of our spending limit. How does this end? He said the recent behavior of the court with these decisions is outrageous and destabilizing. And he made some news there by saying that he does support not overturning the filibuster, but he said making an exception to the filibuster for this decision. And the important context here is this. Republicans are genuinely struggling to make this case that Joe Biden has done anything that's impeachable. Whatever momentum they had at all seriously has been stunted. And if you talk privately to many Republicans in this building, many will concede that. Now, she's already the favorite candidate of Donald Trump to be in that role. Not only is she his daughter-in-law, but she's also a very strong surrogate for the Trump campaign. It seems like you're not fazed at all by criticism from not just Democrats, but from also fellow Republicans that say it appears like this Congress, Republicans specifically, cannot govern. It's only chaos. You've only got the infighting. What would your response be to that? Not just a rallying cry, but also a call to action for Congress directly. The president saying, end your recess, come back and pass the security supplemental, which would provide $60 billion in military assistance to Ukraine. So the polling told us this was going to be the likely outcome, and it's because more so than anybody else, Liz Cheney has really staked out a position. She has made herself the face of the Republican opposition to former President Trump. We've lost our manufacturing bases in the United States, and president after president, party after party promises to try to restore that. What does this move say about their efforts on both sides of the aisle to do that? Well, for her, it could be a turnout game, right? She's going to need a strong number of independents to turn out tomorrow for her, not just Republicans, also some maybe Democrat-leaning independents. But I want to introduce you to two guys here. We got Kevin, we got Dan. So this is a perspective that I think is important to get. Right off the bat, President Biden said unequivocally that Vladimir Putin is responsible for the death of Alexei Navalny, that we may not have all of the details around Navalny's death, but saying without a doubt Putin is responsible. The other important takeaway is that we were wondering what the White House was going to do in response. You had a lot of the tension inside the room, but outside the room was where a lot of the emotion poured out, because we heard from families. A lot of these are parents who have teenage children that have died by suicide, taking their own lives. You're going to have a Democratic president for the next 2 years, so you can lay out the agenda, but how do you actually govern? You're going to have to work with the other side. If any of these plans become law, how does that work?
Well, if the American people give us the majority.
And look, if you read the affidavit that the Justice Department put out, it almost reads like a spy novel. Unfortunately and disturbingly, it is all too real. And what's more remarkable, this wasn't some rogue lone actor. The Justice Department says that this man was plotting to kill Americans. Talked to a lot of people here. They still think the divisions are very serious and stark. So, yes, there is a war in Israel. Yes, that adds some urgency to get this done. But there is a very divided conference meeting behind me right now, and it's not clear whether they're going to get their ducks in a row by the end of this week. In fact, most people don't think they will. And Nicole, one important thing to remember, Donald Trump did not have to be here today. He voluntarily came. He could very well have been in Iowa or New Hampshire campaigning, but it does sort of show you that his campaign strategy and his legal strategy are intertwined. Now, they've been filling him out over here and then turning him in
over this way in this big black box here. Now, let's say that you are one of those independents that filled out a Republican ballot. You are actually going to be automatically registered as a Republican then for the general election. It's to try to coalesce further, get closer to a consensus around one person. And you talked about Steve Scalise, but we can tell you that, yes, he did get that nomination. Technically, he's the Republicans' nominee here. He is not anywhere close at this moment right now to having 217. In fact, as we're sort of watching people change their minds in real time here, I have sources I've been talking to that say they've been wanting to bring him in for quite some time, get him under oath and ask him some serious questions. But it's not just lawmakers. We also have a number of residents from East Palestine that also want to hear from him. Right now, I'm joined by Aaron Stauffer. Aaron, thank you for taking time here. So pretty crazy stuff, right? You heard Bernie Sanders there trying to keep the peace. I don't know that, look, we've seen some tense exchanges before. Don't know that it's gotten that close to two people actually getting up and throwing down, literally in a Senate hearing in 120 years or something like that.